Let's get into our first topic now, though. Should we ban mobile phones in all schools? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Daniel Kebede, the General Secretary of the UK's biggest teaching union, the National Education Unions, has said he thinks the government should introduce a statutory ban, i.e. a law to ban mobile phones in schools. He told our producer this is his personal view, and that kids shouldn't be allowed to get their phones out unless teachers want to use them as part of a lesson. And more schools should consider locking phones away. At the moment, schools in England are following guidance brought in by the Tories, which advises them to restrict the use of mobile phones during the school day. But Daniel Kebede wants Labour to go even further. We're starting to see, aren't we, Henry, the sort of damage that mobile phones can bring to our kids, bring into our homes, and how it disrupts our families.
Every aspect of life, it would appear. Family life, people not talking to each other, social life, children in schools not engaging with each other, and academic life. If you look at the PISA International League table on maths and English, it would appear that in China, in Singapore, in France, in Finland, they have taken this very seriously. They've noticed that the children's performance, particularly in maths, has gone down, and they've introduced at least statutory bans, with a bit of guidance, a degree of autonomy for schools, but a broad statutory ban in those countries. So if we did this, we wouldn't be an outlier. And we'd also have to do it in concert with, I suppose, an attempt to persuade children through family supervision to look at their mobile phones and smartphones, etc., less at home too, because I think the latest figures show that the average child spends about 4 hours a day on a smartphone or a wireless-enabled device at home as well. So if you allow them to do it at 2 or 3 hours at school, as well as 4 hours at home, it's just going crazy.
OK, is it a law that we need, though?
No.
Lowri?
I've got 3 kids, one of whom is still at school, well, she's at sixth form college. And they, like most of the schools that my kids have been to, have a policy where you're not allowed to have your phone at school. So it either has to be locked away in a box that's kept in the office, or it has to be off. And if it's on and you're discovered, then it will be taken away from you for a week. So kids take this really seriously. This is the guy from the union seems to, I don't know what school he's in, but I don't know any schools where they allow phones. The 4 hours, I think actually it's probably more than 4 hours, to be honest, per day. I was quite surprised how little that was. The issue about phones is, number one, for schools, is not only do I need my kid to have a phone to tell me I'm going to so-and-so's house, I won't be home for 3 hours. I like to know where she is, so that's useful to me. And also, for if you want to do anything with a school now, it's all online. If you want to pay for their school lunches, you have to pay online. Or all their school trips, you have to sign up for them online. All their homework is done online. So this idea that schools can be kind of IT-free zones is just
nobody's
mad.
calling them IT-free zones.
But it's all done on a phone.
No, but it's not on the phone. It's going to be on tablets in school. You know, schools started introducing computers, I think, in the 90s and then onwards. So they've been with us for the best part of 30 years. It's about whether children should have a device that can hugely distract them and can be used for bullying or all kinds of nefarious behaviour in school. No, think about it. A significant percentage of the bullying that children now suffer during the school day happens at lunchtime, break time and afterwards. And sometimes they say, let's meet you after school to get this kid.
But I've got kids in school, and I'm telling you, they're not allowed to have their phones in school. So
maybe it's a very good school.
So there's been research carried out. 90% of secondary schools surveyed have a policy in place which restricts phone use. So what I'm thinking is, if we're nearly there, why not just make it a level playing field, if you pardon the term, but so that all kids know that when you're at school, you don't have a phone. So FOMO, that idea that you're missing out on something that might be going on, just doesn't exist at all. One law for everybody, and you eradicate
needs to be governed by laws. It's endless. Some people in the world want to tell everybody else how to behave. I think it's up to the head teacher to set the pattern, and the head teacher says the policy, and then all the kids follow that policy. I think that this is a massive distraction for a lot of the damage done with phones. Is not during school time. It's after. It's on the way home.
But a lot of the behavioural problems that you see in schools is caused by phones being used during the school day, particularly for bullying,
I don't agree.
distraction. I mean, teachers, one of the reasons why teachers are leaving in droves is because of behaviour during the school day. A lot of that is enabled by phone use during the school day.
I don't think it is. I mean, I've got kids in school, and that's not what I see.
Well, that's your personal experience, and valuable though it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that's happening all up and down the country in schools where they're really struggling, and perhaps a law would help a head teacher, implement the policy.
Isn't it clear that, I mean, adolescence, we talk about it a lot, is a drama that has really struck a chord with a lot of people. And the message from that is that actually we don't see what's going on. Parents don't know what's happening. And so we cannot dictate what happens even in our own homes, let alone what's happening at school. It's clear kids are using these, and they could be delivering information, could be delivering media that is really unsuitable for them. A law that just puts that out of the way for the school day only allows them to focus on their studies.
Yeah, so first stage is we have a law that prohibits any use during the school, and then the law becomes, OK, actually, but the real problem is we shouldn't allow kids to have phones under a certain age, which is also something that's being discussed at the moment. And it becomes parents who are the ultimate arbiters of what their children should or shouldn't be doing. Our ability to police our own children, not that I want to police them really, but anyway, let's say police them, is taken away by the state. Actually, I think it's up to parents to make those decisions, not the government to make those decisions.
Remember what the role of a teacher is. It's in loco parentis, in place of the parent, and that's for 8 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week, for how many years? 11 years? That's a huge responsibility. And at the end of it, when the child comes out at the age of 16 or 18, unable to read or write, unable to behave, what do parents say? It's the school's fault.
Well, also, though, Henry, you say they're unable to read or write, but, I mean, part of education is understanding how to use technology and how to be able to use it responsibly, and the limitations of it. So if we're not learning in that in school because those devices are nowhere to see, don't they fall off a cliff? When they're faced with the freedom to use it at work?
They're on the phone, probably around the table with the family, if they're sitting by the table with the family at breakfast. Let's say they get up at 7 o'clock, they go off to school for 8:30, so no phones. Then you focus. You channel and you concentrate. And mobile phones and wireless, even me as an adult of 57 years old, I know that my concentration is sometimes shot to pieces by overdosing on technology. They don't use the phone throughout the day. They're able to talk to their fellow human being, fellow child, teacher during the day. 3:30, you get your phone back and you can catch up on all the things that you missed out on during the last 7 hours.
Which is what schools are already doing. I just think it's confected.
90%
I think what we haven't talked about is parents and phones, because we know that modelling is really important for kids. So actually, rather than just focusing on how many hours kids are on their phones, let's talk about how many hours we are on our phones.
But that's displacement. I know it's valuable, but it's displacement. And also, our brains are fully developed.
Oh, so that's okay then.
Children's brains are not fully developed, which is why they do reckless things.
You just want a rule for kids, not for yourself.
No. Well, I've been a child and I was completely ruled by hardline Catholics until I was 18. I want some freedom now, but the children have to go through what I went through in order to become well-adjusted and decent.
I mean, you make a good point. I suggested to the team earlier on that as part of this discussion, we should look at our screen time for yesterday. And then I realised what mine was. I thought, no, we won't do that. It's really, I was going to be a massive hypocrite.
Preacher, heal thyself.
OK, let's take a call. Jean's in Warwickshire. Jean, is it time for an outright ban on phones in schools? What do you think?
Good morning, Matt. Yes, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. I'm a grandmother of 6. 2 are really nervous children that had to be taken out of mainline school. I find that mobile phones take their concentration away from their work. They're absolutely should be totally banned until the age of 16. And there is no reason for any child to go to school without a mobile phone. They are cheap enough to buy that you can just text. Surely we can do that for our kids. Produce mobile phone for texting, for taking to school, so that they can go home, in safety and be in contact with their parents, but not on the media. I mean, I just find it absolutely awful.
Jean, the nervousness that you were talking about with your grandkids, was that contributed? Do you think that was a contributory factor, the fact that they had phones, that they were always aware what their friends were up to as a result?
Absolutely. And the opinions of these so-called friends were so important. And they react to life along those lines. And to force that, they've had to be brought out of school, and they are two wonderful kids now, age 16 and 22 coming up, and they're two wonderful people, but they went through a very stressful time at school, really stressful, and these phones, they're locked to their ears at playtime, at lunchtime. They're reading all the messages of, jealousy, because one is pretty, so, their mates don't like them looking quite like that. It's just awful. I find that society today, I was brought up in a much calmer, wonderful world, because I'm 78 this year.
Sounds a lot younger.
But Jean's parents, Jean, your grandchildren's parents, whether your son or daughter, took the decision to take the kids out of school. Did they remove the phones? Hang on, but did they remove the phones as well?
Because there isn't a law that says your child should not take the phone. They gave them a limited time at home, but going to school, they need it for safety, they need it for this, that and the other. You're given those excuses. And I understand why the parents feel like that. Your child goes to school, oh, yeah, your mummy told you couldn't bring a phone. Do you know what I mean?
So there's that peer... This is the thing, though, Lowri, that after the age of 10, my experience with kids was that peer pressure, the affirmation of their peers, the people around them, was so powerful, so important to them. Anything I said or a teacher said was never going to make a difference. From 10, that just ramps up through their teenage years. And having that phone means they are surrounded by the opinion of their peers without a break.
But that doesn't stop when the school day ends. We're talking about a ban during the school day, which already exists in most schools anyway. So either you say, well, no kids should have phones at all, which is obviously what Jean wants, or as a parent, you manage their use and you try and provide alternative activities. The kids are off for Easter, and my sister went on the family WhatsApp and said, is somebody trying to use a Lime bike with a... And then she said, her son was on a bike. He's peddling something out, and she, of course, absolutely threw it. I said, did you hack it? And he said, yes. But, So, but the fact he was, doing something, this was amazing that he was doing something. But the reality of life is it's up to parents, not up to government.
Yeah, but there's times when it's out of reach. OK, well, listen, Deborah on X said, my children have an app on their phone so I can see where they are. I need to know they're safe on their journey to and from school. Stephen, also on X, said, I'd rather schools accept that smartphones are just part of life. Jackie on Facebook says, all previous generations have managed without them. Smartphones shouldn't be given out until children are 18. Wow, yeah. It's getting later and later.
We're talking, and Lowri offers this notion that we've got this policy, 90% of schools, and it's all going swimmingly, so we don't need a law. But we have an implementation crisis with so many guidelines. You can have a policy at the school level, at the head teacher level, but what's happening in the classroom? It's very clear from the experience of teachers, and Daniel Kebede, the union leader, said this, we are struggling with behaviour, and mobile phones are a very, very powerful reason why it's very hard to keep discipline in the classroom. You can tell them whatever you want at the head teacher level, but it's how the children behave in the classroom.
It does feel
and the law would help back.
It does feel like we're changing our minds, or at least we're seeing new evidence come through, and the conversation, as Daniel Kebede wanted, is taking place. We're talking
or we're moving into a situation where government has got this terrible land grab and they want more and more say over all of our lives, which I think is quite worrying.
But people turn around and say, what's the government going to do about our kids?
The government's,
Well,
the government's not doing anything just yet. Anyway, don't forget...